Why are we still teaching men how to date us? Women evolved. Patriarchy didn't. That's the real dating crisis. Somewhere in our collective dating fatigue, this question has been rising louder and louder. Why are women still responsible for teaching men how to date them? Still expected to explain, soften, translate, reward, and absorb? At first glance, the answer seems obvious, because most men were never taught what healthy love looks like. And if we're keeping it really real, a lot of women weren't either. I know I certainly wasn't. I can easily identify the ways that lack of modeling followed me, even after escaping my emotionally neglectful at best and emotionally abusive at worst childhood household. My father didn't model even the bare minimum I now expect from a partner. It didn't matter that I left and didn't look back for 10 years. It didn't matter that I used what I experienced as a template for how not to treat people in general, and partners especially. It didn't matter that every man I've been involved with spoke about how great I was and tried to remain fixtures in my life, even as they admitted they were never actually interested in the kind of relationship I thought we had agreed to be in. What we now call the bare minimum, respect, communication, consistency, used to be considered extra, weak, or even optional. And not just by men. It wasn't uncommon for women to be told by their mothers, grandmothers, older sisters, married aunts, or family friends that marriage wasn't meant to be something women enjoyed. That sex was simply a duty to be endured. That once she had his babies, he would take a mistress and she wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. It sounds harsh now, but for generations, this was how women supported each other's survival, by softening the edges of an unequal system and making endurance sound like wisdom until something better came along. We do have to break habits, but more than that, we are unlearning inheritance. What if it's biological? I used to think I was just not a morning person. A sleep app told me so. My energy said the same. Cool, whatever. It's a personality quirk, right? And then I took a DNA test, and there it was, an actual genetic marker for being a night owl. Later I found out where that came from. It's a survival trait. My ancestors were the ones who stayed up to keep watch at night. Behavior passed down biologically, not just socially. That got me thinking, what else are we carrying? Turns out our biology adapts to the lives we live, and it passes those adaptations forward. The Tibetan Highlanders, for example, developed oxygen-efficient lungs to survive at high altitudes. It's estimated that this adaptation occurred over roughly 3,000 years, which may sound like a long time, but in evolutionary terms, it's considered relatively rapid. And it's not just long-term evolution. There's a growing field of research called epigenetics, which studies how trauma, stress, caregiving, and even emotional absence can change the way our genes are expressed without altering the DNA itself. These changes can happen within just 1 or 2 generations, and they often show up in the form of heightened vigilance, anxiety, trust issues, or sensitivity to rejection. In other words, your body might be responding to harm your ancestors lived through, whether or not it was ever named. So what happens in a society where for centuries women were seen as property? Where love, safety, and survival depended on appeasing the person who owned you? What traits does that encode? What survival adaptations get passed down through our nervous systems, our behaviors, our expectations? The evolution of women. Let's name it plainly. Women didn't opt out of traditional relationships because of feminism. Feminism was the adaptation. It was the natural, biological, emotional response to living in systems that prioritized male comfort and control over female safety and sovereignty. Did feminism get everything exactly right? Of course not. No movement does. There have always been extremists who distort the narrative. But at its core, feminism wasn't about supremacy, it was about survival. We know that might be hard for some of you to understand. Could that be because you were conditioned to believe that supremacy is the only thing worth fighting for? Choosing not to date at all, a survival response. Withdrawing collective empathy from men and reserving it for the ones who show up, survival, adaptation, pattern recognition. And like all successful adaptations, these patterns stuck. They became boundary, wisdom, cultural code. So now, when men ask why dating feels so hard, the answer isn't that women are bitter, selfish, or broken. It's that women evolved, and many men didn't. There was no biological imperative for them to do so. Now there is. We're calling it the male loneliness epidemic. It's real. But the reasons it's real aren't what most men who identify with it seem to believe. It's not just women who got hurt. Here's where it gets trickier. Because now we're seeing something else. The harm patriarchy does to men. It's become glaringly visible. Loneliness, emotional isolation, reactive defensiveness, a craving for closeness with no emotional roadmap to get there. And it's not just affecting men's relationships with women. That lack of emotional evolution has made it difficult for many men to form meaningful relationships with each other. Not just locker room talk, not did you see the game last night. We're talking about conversation and connection with real depth, real substance. And if your knee-jerk reaction to this is, that's gay, congratulations, you've just told on yourself. Instead of asking, what can we do to change this, many men are blaming women for evolving, for learning faster, for doing the emotional labor and refusing to hand over the cheat sheet. But love didn't leave men behind. Women didn't leave men behind. Patriarchy did. The maturity gap. We're not in a dating crisis. We're in a maturity gap. Men were denied the tools to grow relationally, while women were forced to learn them for survival. And now that women are opting out of emotionally imbalanced partnerships, it's suddenly a problem. This isn't a call to go back. This isn't a call to return to teaching men how to date us. That time is over. What we need now are better questions. Questions like, what will it take for men to evolve to? What does self-guided relational growth look like? How do we build futures rooted in mutuality, not obligation? The holy work of rewriting the pattern. You're not just tired. You're the first link in your family line trying to write something new. You're the first to stop explaining your humanity in exchange for crumbs of care. And real talk, it's heavy, but it's holy work. For me, this isn't work I've taken on because of my empathy for men, even though empathy for everyone who deserves it is core to who I am. I have 2 nieces. One is 6 months away from being a teenager. The other will complete her first year of life this fall. I'm building for them just as much as I'm building for the men and women out there chasing connection as I write this. Because the truth is, women have been evolving literally to survive. Control, restriction, entitlement, silence, violence, neglect. And of course, when society reached a point where women could provide for themselves, protect for themselves, choose themselves, a whole lot of men got left behind. Not because women changed too much, but because patriarchy never expected them to change at all. And now it's showing. So no, this isn't about going back and spelling it all out. This is about building something forward, something mutual, something mature. Because if men want connection, they can't just ask to be taught how to love. They have to be open to evolving. This isn't about blame. It's about biology. And when we see it clearly, we get to choose. Repeat the pattern or rewrite it with intent.